Okay, this is not gonna work.
Lemon.
Ariel?
This is in my face.
That is okay.
Lemon. How many sets of debate clothes do you have? Or do you wear the same thing?
I have one suit and multiple shirts. And actually a dress.
Is it playing? Oh, it is.
Did you wear a dress? You want to see?
You guys. Yeah.
I don't know. You can start the debate. Wait.
Oh, I'm first speaker.
Never mind. If it's out of the way. Oh, please.
Sorry, I forgot for a moment.
We can't prep the wrong case.
We can't have the wrong case.
That's like Hila and Meghan did once.
Yeah, there's a lot. Because there's two bits. Okay. Let's go.
Oh.
Just go. Wait. Let's go. Never mind.
You're good at photo shoot.
No.
Well, you always do this, but then you know that when we actually talk, you're
Yeah.
really good, so I don't understand.
Like, just like tequila and then, oh, so good. Undefeated champion. Alright. Let's go.
Okay, tension.
Megan,
Ariel, literally, you do this all the time.
That's the source for this.
Isn't it true? Like, it turned out to be really good.
Okay, right.
Lemon, do you have these from a black one? Yeah, a black. Can I borrow it?
Don't laugh at me.
I love black ones.
Alright,
And
that's
that's
fine.
Oh my god, this is gonna take 2 minutes, okay? Maybe even less than that, because I have nothing.
Just expand on what you have.
But I don't understand what we have. How do you expand what you don't understand?
Make it sound like you know what we're talking about.
But I don't.
Just
like
make it
do
happen, okay? Like there's no one side, just do the best you can, okay? This is just a practice debate.
There's a lot
There's
of...
no pressure here.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Can we please turn off the computer? We haven't recorded me for like the past... God, we're just...
As always, you start.
Time starts now. As a member of the affirmative team, I strongly affirm the resolution that the Obama policy against ISIS will do more good than harm. As a brief roadmap as to what I will be going over in my speech, I will first go over definitions and the criterion, and then move on to the affirmative team's own two independent contentions. The affirmative team defines the Obama policy as its policy to increase airstrikes in the areas where ISIS is not located. They can spread out more than they have been able to before. We define ISIS as the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, and we define good as more benefits and harm as less benefits and more detriments. The affirmative team has set the criterion as utilitarianism. And now I will be moving on to the affirmative team's independent contention. The first contention deals with how the Obama policy will lead to more Middle Eastern and European countries as allies. This clearly shows that, according to the New York Times, Obama's new policy against ISIS proves that what ISIS is doing is wrong in a global manner. And it shows that ISIS has more enemies than it would like to recognize. And it is allowing more countries to join in on the war and shows that this is not just an American war. And the more countries that are going against ISIS will lead to a stronger power against it and more offense. The second contention deals with how the Obama policy is preventing ISIS from spreading and becoming a larger threat than it already is. According to Huffington Post, it is protecting all the civilians outside of the areas that ISIS has taken over, and there are more people in these areas than there are of.
Can you clarify the second contention?
Second contention is that we are preventing ISIS from spreading and becoming a bigger threat. There are more people who are not are currently in without the US's interference, ISIS will spread, and without the United States and its allies defending the areas that have not been sieged yet, it will become a larger threat and gain more power and be able to hurt even more innocent lives than they have before. And now, with this policy, the United States and its allies can not only send in these airstrikes and play offense, but we're also now playing defense and protecting all these areas that ISIS has not taken control of, which increases our chances of defeating them. And there has been. Yes?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the definition of Obama's policy? Like, what is it?
Obama's policy is to increase the airstrikes in areas where ISIS is not yet proven to have taken over. And now it states in the New York Times that according to that the Obama policy will protect beyond just the United States citizens, but is also protecting others as well in a humanitarian mission. And therefore, I strongly affirm the resolution that the Obama policy against ISIS will do more good than harm.
What was the time on that?
Meghan.
Let's talk about that. You said you would go to the density of 440. That's really good.
Elaine, do you like how to use color?
Let's go.
Lately, my last three ones have been in color. Oh my goodness.
Why are we both getting that?
No, I just put something on.
Oh, okay. Like, why are we both saying? Why aren't you flowing?
I'm just gonna go with it.
Okay, this
You should both have your own paper, just for.
Just let me do it.
Time starts now. As a member of the opposition, I strongly negate the resolution that the Obama policy against ISIS would do more good than harm. As a brief roadmap, I'll be first going over my opponent's case, then going over our own two independent contentions. So, our opponent's first contention was that that by having these drone strikes, it'll improve the allies and it'll make the world more aware that ISIS is doing these bad, terrible things toward the community, and so it will cause more offensive action towards them. However, there is no correlation to this to the resolution, and the whole world already knows that ISIS is a terrorist group and that they're already dangerous. And so we don't need extra drone strikes in order to prove this point if the whole world already knows it. That's why there's so many nations like Britain and France that are trying to go against ISIS, and so there is no need for this drone strikes. Our opponent's second contention was that by doing these drone strikes, it will prevent this terrorism from spreading, and it will also protect all the citizens of the U.S. and those in the Middle East. However, in fact, as I will be going over in my first contention, this will not actually help the civilians because, in fact, it will harm them. It will actually harm them, and instead of preventing ISIS from spreading, it will actually cause more terrorism in the area. So now I'll be going over our first contention. Yes.
Can you please clarify that?
So I'll be going over your I'll be refuting it through my first contention, but I was basically saying that we will not be protecting the civilians and instead we'll be causing more harm towards them, and we will not be able to stop terrorism. Instead, we'll spark even more. So our first contention is that currently our strikes against ISIS are ineffective because they will cause more civilian casualties. And the process in which the drone strikes are put down is very inaccurate, causing more deaths. And there's a 22% civilian casualty rate, which does go against my opponent's second contention, where they said that there will be no harm done by doing this. And this was from the Washington Post. There have been 10,700 civilian lives lost in Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen. And basically hurting these innocent civilians who had no connection toward ISIS at all is violating the UDHR, which stands for the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. UDHR basically states that shows the importance of a human life, and by hurting and killing these innocent lives who had no connection to this terrorism at all, we will be violating these rights in which the whole world has agreed to sign. And so, as I said before, we will also be sparking the terrorism instead of stopping it. Now, this is because if you think about it logically, if you kill these people who are innocent people, families and friends, you are hurting these people and these families. And by killing these people, ABC News shows that for every one person killed through these drone strikes, we get 7 new terrorists. Now, the reason behind this is because people are now angered by that their innocent families and their friends are dying, and now there's a reason that they have a reason to join ISIS for this motive that the U.S. launched the attack on them. And so this will be counterproductive because instead of stopping terrorism, we'll be instead sparking even more. Our second contention is that a multilateral force is more effective than a unilateral. Multilateral meaning that there'll be different aspects and different nations helping to attack ISIS. So, for example, Great Britain and France can help attack ISIS in a different way in which Americans can. We cannot send ground troops towards ISIS or towards the Middle East because of our location. We are one ocean away, one enormous ocean away from these other continents. And so Britain and France and Belgium are certainly closer to them. And so they will be able to have the resources send more ground troops to that location. And ground troops are more accurate than these drone strikes. For these drone strikes, again, 22% civilian casualty rates. And however, ground troops, it will be much more accurate towards killing the enemy. And so there'll be no extra lives lost. And it's more effective to defeat ISIS. And also, this relates to net benefits because this will relate to utilitarianism because there'll be a greater amount of good for these people these innocent civilians living in the Middle East, as I said before, because they will not be hurt by these drone strikes because they're ineffective and inaccurate. And because of these reasons where it's ineffective and inaccurate, the Obama policy against ISIS does more harm than good.
As a member of the affirmative team, I strongly affirm the resolution that the Obama policy against ISIS will do more good than harm. First, I will be going over their refutations to our contentions before refuting their contentions. So first of all, our first contention was that there were the Obama policy creates more Middle Eastern European allies, and that and they respond by saying that the whole world already knows that ISIS is bad and that there's no need to increase the number of airstrikes. And then, and with the Obama policy, it is spreading the that it is taking more action, and more different countries will that more countries will see what the United States does and follow along. Our second contention was that it prevents.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Or can you clarify?
So you said that that there was no correlation between our contention and the resolution, because the whole world already knows that ISIS is bad. But we are spreading, or the Obama policy is, the effectiveness of the Obama policy is spreading to more countries, and there will be more Middle East and European allies. Because more countries will follow us and will actively participate in going against ISIS. Their second contention was that it prevents, or our second contention was that it prevents ISIS from spreading and protects civilians. And they responded by saying that they were ineffective and there were more civilian casualties. But according to Obama, when he made the speech announcing the policy, there have already been 150 successful airstrikes against ISIS. So,
Can you repeat that number?
150 effective, successful airstrikes.
Can you define what successful means in these terms?
They have been effective in destroying ISIS, taking down the sector of ISIS. And that with and connect, but the Obama policy saves more lives and stops ISIS because it protects civilians and outside of ISIS-owned areas, and if ISIS spreads because there are less airstrikes, then more innocent lives will be lost, and that is not the greatest amount of good.
How many total airstrikes were there?
90% of the airstrikes were successful. Their second contention was that multilateral was better than unilateral, and but the Obama policy defends other countries too, and this leads to more Middle East and European allies. It defends other countries from ISIS. And they also do not state why. They do not clearly state why it was better. Strongly affirm the resolution that the Islam policies will do more good than harm.
Oh my god. I can be first.
It's Obama's policy.
I'm sick, so I feel like I already had it down. Just two. I didn't read your back. Please, timer. I'm just gonna. I need to read this one. Give me your timer. Okay, I need this when I go to my home. Thank you. I'm not gonna look out of this notebook. I don't like big houses. Okay. Time starts now. We strongly negate the resolution that the Obama policy against ISIS will do more good than harm. So first, for a roadmap, I'll start by refuting our opponents' refutations to our own contentions, refuting their contentions, and then moving on to our own. First, I will start by refuting our opponents' contentions to our refutations to their contentions, then refuting their refutations to our contentions, and then going on to our own contentions. Okay, so their first contention was that this Obama policy will help us gain more allies, such as European countries, and they also said that proving that they said that proves that ISIS is doing wrong, and that there are more enemies than they think, meaning ISIS. And this is not just a U.S. war. There are more. This will help more countries get involved, which will increase our offense. And our refutation to this was that this is irrelevant and that this is about ISIS being bad, which you already know. And they refuted this by saying, by just merely repeating their own contention. Not only is their refutation really unclear, but they just repeated themselves and they have no evidence for saying that there will be more allies. Their second contention was that they're preventing ISIS from spreading / becoming a bigger threat, and that the U.S. must take action. And our refutation to this was that we can take action, but other action, not this Obama policy, such as not drone / airstrikes. The drone strikes are very inaccurate, which I will go on in my own contentions. And they said to this that there were 150 effective strikes and that this is 90% effective, and Obama said this. Okay, first of all, how many people did you kill? Also, Obama is clearly biased towards his own statement, as anybody would be biased towards their own statement, because anyone would try and defend themselves. Now, on to refuting their refutations to our contentions. Okay, so for their refutation to our contention, they only said that they just repeated their first contention, and also my partner clearly stated that drone strikes are ineffective, and they said that we had no evidence for this, and also, yes, as I said before, Obama supports his own statement, which is biased. Now moving on to our own contentions. So our first contention is that this is very inaccurate and ineffective. And I quote, "We do not have good intelligence about what is going on the ground. It would be really hard to identify the right targets, as we do not have human intelligence, assets, or troops available to help guide them tactically. Third of all, ISIS could hit civilian. Third of all, we could hit civilians or friendly forces, giving ISIS a huge propaganda coup that would be worse than no U.S. intervention at all. And this is from Cronin, who is a famous politician. Okay. Also, this would the drone strikes would backfire because basically drone strikes are inaccurate, which causes them to kill civilians and their families, and then they'll get mad at us and they'll see the U.S. as a threat, like the U.S. The U.S. killed my family, my father, my mother, etc. And then they'll join ISIS in order to combat the U.S. who sent out the drone strikes and killed their own family. Our second contention is that multilateral force is more effective than unilateral. Okay, which is basically combining a lot of different countries working together to combat ISIS, because ISIS is not the U.S.'s only issue. It is a global issue, and everybody is going to be affected by it. And then the drone strikes. There are many intelligence failures, as they are only useful as the information that is guiding them. Great Britain and France, for example, can help attack ISIS. For example, they'll be able to provide ground troops, whereas the U.S. will not necessarily be able to. And ground troops would be more accurate. And ground troops are not only just like people on the land fighting them with like guns. You can use other. Yes.
My partner stated before that in our contentions, we stated that we are going to be gaining these allies, such as the European countries, such as France and Britain, by the Obama policy. And if you're stating that if we gain these allies, it's good. And the affirmative team is saying that we are going to gain these allies through the Obama policy.
There's no exact evidence that this or reason that this will exactly work, because drone strikes, which is basically the Obama policy, is causing more harm than good, which does not connect to the criteria of utilitarianism. Also, by sending in ground troops, it would be more effective to defeat ISIS than drone troops. And as I said before, the terrorists are just growing with what we are doing. So, as a summary, the Obama policy against ISIS will not do more good than harm. Because, first of all, this is very ineffective and inaccurate, as we do not have the intelligence about what's going on the ground. So it's really hard to control what exactly and where exactly the terrorists are hitting. Also, this will backfire. For example, if they kill civilians and their families, they will get mad at us. They'll see the U.S. as a threat, and then they'll join ISIS. And then also, this a multilateral force is more effective than a unilateral, because the U.S. is ISIS is a global issue. So other countries combining to defeat this ISIS will be more effective than just the U.S. using the Obama policy. I strongly urge innovation.
I don't understand.
So two comparisons, you're basically comparing the app world and the neg world. So you're saying with the affirmative team's plan or with the affirmative team's side, this would happen, that's bad if you're neg. In the neg world, this would happen, that is good because.
Oh, I'm not hypothetical.
Basically you're just weighing and comparing.
I felt like I was
No, just talk about
Meghan.
Okay, no.
I felt like I actually did okay.
Guys, how do I do that as a voters?
No, just
Say like that.
Time starts. Yeah. As the last speech of this debate, for the negation team, I'll now be explaining the voter issues, which is why you, Judge, should vote for the negation team to win this debate. So, our first voter issue is that our opponent had drop points. For my first refutation to their first my first refutation to their first contention, I said that there's no correlation to the resolution, and that that the world already knows that ISIS is dangerous, and so we don't need these drone strikes in order to prove that it's dangerous to the rest of the world. And my opponent responded by merely repeating their contention, and so they did not properly refute our refutation, and so they, which shows that they conceded into our points. Our second voter issue is that we adhere to the criterion of utilitarianism, which means the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people, better than the opposition team. There are two main parts of this debate, which were for supporting utilitarianism, which were saving the people and stopping terrorism. Our opponent stated that there was that we would not harm any civilian using these drone strikes, and that we will also stop terrorism by doing so. However, they merely spewed out evidence, and they gave no actual reasoning, no logic behind how this correlates to each other and how it happens. However, the negation team does. So for saving the people, we're saying that these drone strikes are really inaccurate and really ineffective because they're up in the air and you can't really plan who's going to be there. If there's going to be civilians there, if ISIS is going to be there, and you can't plan. And it's only using as an info guideline, not an actual specific point. And so because of this inaccuracy, it is hurting these people, which is clear logic showing that it's hurting these 22% of the civilian casualty rate. Also, for stopping terrorism, our opponent merely stated that it would kill the ISIS members. However, by killing these innocent lives, we are making it so that these for every one person we get 7 other terrorists. This is because the people are angered that the U.S. put this upon them, and so they will try to be against the U.S. in this way by joining ISIS, and which basically backfires on us, and that will be counterproductive for us because we will not, instead of stopping terrorism, we'll be sparking terrorism. Our third voter issue is dealing with legality because our opponent, with our opponent's plan, they're clearly contradicting the moral laws of the world. For example, by killing these innocent people, you're clearly going against the United Declaration of Human Rights, and which every country has signed, and meaning agreeing to value a human life and what's part of it. But clearly, by killing innocent lives who had no connection to terrorism at all, we are going against this. And the plan is, our opponent's plan is basically going against the fundamental values of the world and the U.S. constitutionalities. And so, because we're able to help, by stopping the increase of amount of drone strikes, we're able to decrease the amount of lives, civilian innocent lives lost, and we're also able to have more accurate ways of stopping ISIS instead of vague, inaccurate, and ineffective ways of doing so. So, because of these reasons, I strongly negate that. I strongly urge the negation vote for the resolution that the Obama policy against ISIS would do more harm than good than harm. Who's on your name?
I did. Only I would say your name, if not.
Okay.
Time starts now. As a member of the affirmative team, I strongly affirm the resolution that the Obama policy against ISIS will do more good than harm. I will now be going over voting issues, reasons why the affirmative team won today's debate. Our first voting issue is that my opponents misinterpreted our first contention. The opposition stated as a refutation to the affirmative team's first contention that the whole world already knows that ISIS is bad, and that our refutation to that refutation was that we only repeated our first contention. However, I would like to state that the affirmative team was clarifying our first contention since the negation team misinterpreted it. Our first contention is dealing with gaining more allies and helping other countries, which connects to the criterion of utilitarianism. We are not just spreading the word that ISIS is bad. We are trying to gain more allies, which the negation team did not address, and therefore this contention still stands. Our second voting issue also deals with my opponent's attack on our technicality. They stated that the affirmative team's plan would not work. However, I would like to state that since this debate is a factual debate, the affirmative team provided no plan. We did not state any plan, and my opponent clearly stated that, and therefore I cannot refute this since they are attacking a non-existent plan. Third voting issue deals with how we related to utilitarianism because the affirmative team is saving more lives. The affirmative team is defending all the areas, even beyond Iraq and Syria, and this will bring us more allies, for we are helping these other countries. And we are gaining not just the European allies that my opponent brought up, such as France and Britain, but we are also gaining Middle Eastern allies as well. And according to utilitarianism, more lives are saved, so the affirmation team wins on this point. And the fourth voting issue is stating that the opposition team did not respond to the fact the affirmative team brought up on how Obama policy is now allowing the United States not only to play offense, but defense as well, which is just as important. My opponents only stated something about France and Britain in response to this contention. However, a good team wins not by having only a good offense, but a good defense as well. And they did not respond to this, and therefore the affirmative team also wins on this point. The fifth voting issue that the affirmative team is bringing up is that my opponent stated that statistics that Obama brought up were biased. I would like to question how a statistic can be biased. A statistic is a fact. There is no opinion related into this. And if it is true, it is true. There's no bias involved. And therefore, this refutation does not stand. And now I'll be going over the impacts that the two sides' case would lead to. The Obama policy is gaining the United States more allies, and that will prevent the growth of ISIS and the terrorist groups. And this will save more lives, for we are defending all the countries around the places that they have taken, which therefore connects to utilitarianism. And also, this has incredibly good long-term effects as well. We are gaining more allies to help us in the future. This is strengthening the United States. We are protecting the United States civilians' lives. And this also relates to utilitarianism, and therefore the affirmative team wins on this point. If we follow the case of my opponents, they're basically stating that we should not increase the airstrikes because they are against the Obama policy. However, with their case, our airstrikes and our military force dealing with ISIS will be lessened, and ISIS will gain power and kill more civilians, which is contradicting their own case. And we related to utilitarianism better for all these reasons that I just stated. And for all these reasons, I strongly affirm the resolution and urge it from the ballot. Thank you.
Really? I don't know how those going to learn who you're at. Even the last surprise.
Well,
What'd you do?
if you've used it in your first speech, they're
Really?
more likely to be rude about it in your speech.
Yeah, I just want to go over a couple of things. First, I want to remind you that, like, when you go to do your reputations, remember to either turn the uniqueness and link together, or turn the impact and then you get offense. Because I'm still seeing you guys making defensive arguments, which is okay if that's all you can do is mitigate the damage, but you want as much as possible to turn as many of your reputations into points for your side. So, for example, against her first contention, you turned the uniqueness. You said like, oh, actually, because what was your first reputation? Repeat it.
This is irrelevant in that what phase the evidence that they gave is about ISIS being bad, which you already know.
Yes. So that's turning uniqueness, right? Saying like, well, we already know that ISIS is bad. Like, no one needs to know that. If you also to turn the link, it's like the plan, and then you would have said like, actually, the plan is going to is not going to do anything with that. So like, all you do is make a defensive argument, right? So you can turn the link if you are able to turn the link as well, and just say like, if, for example, that it's actually going to make people like more angry that we're talking about this and like not doing other things, whatever. However you want to do it, then you can actually make offense because you're turning both the uniqueness and the link. Or you can attack the impact too, right? So you can either impact turn or you can turn the uniqueness and the link. So try and do that as much as possible. You don't have to for every time, but just as much as possible you want to make offensive arguments rather than defensive arguments.
So then, like, the link would be more of the plan, right? And, like, showing that because of this new uniqueness, like, the plan will fail, right?
Right. Okay. Which is why, remember, we wanted to set up as many of our arguments to be break arguments as possible, right? Instead of linear arguments. Because, like, linear arguments, they're much more difficult to show, like, the plan will effectively change, like, it will or won't, right? You want to make sure that your arguments as much as possible are will type of arguments. So that way you can garner the biggest impact off of them. The other thing that I thought you guys needed to capitalize on more, you started talking about this a little bit, but I'm going to give you some terminology that will help all of you. And that's the idea of the Hydra effect. So the Hydra effect is a pretty common idea in talking about terrorism. That when you kill like terrorists, especially if you send in troops to like attack a terrorist in a particular area, you create what's called the Hydra effect. Or if you kill one terrorist, their family sees that their like brother or sister or whatever has been killed, and so then they join the terrorist group. And so what happens is you actually have more people joining terrorism overall as a result of like killing terrorists.
What is that?
The Hydra effect.
How do you spell that?
HYDRA.
Like our
like the
possible mascot for us.
Like the like the Greek myth. What cut off one head, many more grow in its place, and that's one thing that you can use as a point of logic and things.
Can that also work for like civilians? Because in our debate, we're talking about how drone strikes can cause civilian casualties.
Yeah, and so then this is where you make a break argument, right? Say like the people have been sympathetic, but they were on the edge of being sympathetic towards Americans. But if we kill some civilians, and then that will cause them to go over that edge and turn into terrorists, right? So that's where the break argument comes in.
Wait, Miss Bima, because like we interpret it as Obama's policy is drone strikes just in general, but then their plan says that he's decreasing it. So then in that case, you can't really do a break.
But you can. But what do you do instead? Well, no, you're going to do a uniqueness turn, and you're going to do a link turn, right? Because they're saying that Obama is decreasing the drones, and you're saying actually he's increasing the drones.
By the way, guys, he is actually increasing the drones.
Well, you know,
Huffington Post
is different.
Always
trust them.
Well, where you should go? Where should you? I mean, you don't look at the first article and just go with it.
It was in the first article, though.
Yeah, we went
It was like 10. Yeah, I was trying to look for the most reliable one, and then we found
Why didn't you go to like WhiteHouse.gov and then click on what they're doing? And then they list the 4 steps of the plan. Yeah, so try doing that first. Like if it's asking what the Obama administration's policy is, go to the website, the Obama administration will list like the website whitehouse.gov will list every single policy that the government puts out.
These are both.
So then for app, I think you did a better job than you thought you did. Like your last speech was really good. Your first speech you were like kind of hesitant, but your points are good. Just making sure that you have the uniqueness, the link, which is how the plan is going to solve the problems, and the impact. Like what good things or what are the things that are going to come out. Either bad things you're going to prevent or good things that are going to come about as a result of the plan. Right? So as long as you have those things, you guys did just fine. Even though you like didn't have as much time as you would have wanted to have to do your plan, you did fine. Okay, so just make sure you feel confident in that. Because I thought that your last speech was good. You did a good job of explaining like the points in which they don't respond, and so that you have the most offense. Part of it is in those voter speeches, just picking the parts of where you think you have the most offense, the most reasons why the judge should vote for you.
I have a question. So the hydro effect, is it just specifically for terrorists or just anybody?
Anytime it's generally for when you're talking about the hydro effect is relating to terrorism, so it's in area where terrorism is true.
So wait,
So like it can also affect like the civilian casualties. That's why the drone strikes is a good time to mention hydro effect, because like the idea here is that there's people who are kind of on the edge. Like they're like right on, remember we want to make those break arguments. They're right on the edge of going to towards terrorism and like or supporting the United States. Like they don't really know. They're like kind of in the middle. And then they see their family members die as a result of American policies, and that pushes them towards becoming terrorists.
Wait, but you said that if a terrorist.
No. If the United States,
so
kill
just civilians.
Or it can be a member of the terrorists too, because like those people have families.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the problem of fighting terrorists with killing terrorists.
Okay. So what would a good plan be to attack terrorists?
Well, then you can, and then the turn to that is like, but ultimately, if we're killing terrorists, and then we also send people in to educate, then we're going to like kill terrorists, but then also give people what they need so that they're not going to turn towards terrorism. So like economic support or aid could be one thing that you could do in your plan in order to be able to stop that. Because as people are more, there's like a lot of evidence to say that as people are more educated, they're less likely to turn to terrorism. And so like and what you do is you say, well, we're actually stopping terrorism as root cause. The reason why people join terrorist groups is because they lack education, they lack economic opportunity, and if you provide them with money and with educational opportunities, then they won't join terrorist groups to begin with. Right, so you're cutting it off at the source. Yeah. I just wanted to do overall things. I'll let you do the line by line.
Sounds good. Ariel.
Yeah?
First of all, for your speech, it is not.
Okay. What are you doing?
Really?
What are you doing?
I'm not Jewish.
Oh, you're not?
No.
I never knew Goldilocks is Jewish.
Goldilocks?
Alright, moving on.
Oh,
So for your speaking, try not to cross your legs.
Yeah,
You
I
look more
noticed that.
confident if you're like, just standing up straight. Watch your eye contact a little, but overall your speaking was definitely good. You just need a little more confidence in what you're saying. But like when you were actually talking, it was sounding really convincing.
I
You totally don't believe
I
it.
can tell you're lying.
No,
Just by the
like-
look in your eyes.
When you're talking, you sound really convincing. So what you just have to work on is making it so that you feel confident enough in yourself to just keep talking and not freak out when you don't know what you're saying. Because you don't sound like you don't know what you're saying. You sound like you know perfectly well what you're saying.
That's a joke, is it?
It's not. I'm not lying to you, I swear. Also, by the way, that was a really good question. In whatever speech was, she sort of asked a question. So, yeah. No, in Carolyn's speech. I remember what your question was. Wait. Because like there was some aggressive questions.
I'm not stupid.
Ariel, let's leave the Christmas side.
That was like so.
So I was saying the first one, we want to talk about less about how you're going to get power. Just to look out. But more than one plan. And so it's full. Like, how.
Yeah. So it's like I don't think you communication because I thought she was gonna email me if she was going to it for sure, and she thought I would email him to tell him.
I don't like it too much because I don't know
She was busy.
right? But you want
But I tried emailing him, but I don't think it happened.
I'm so disappointed. I expected Instagram. Yeah. Starts with how.
the second one I got.
I wasn't speech. Can you come on?
Don't be so brave. Save your sass for another day. Glare at me. I hate to tell you the truth that everybody's thinking, but I don't lie to everybody. On your back, I hate to tell you. Like, every time I hear backstabbing or something, it's true. Get over it. See? I'm like, no, I figured like I've always wanted to like hold up and do this. No, that guy's not. I know that much. You guys always like hold up. Yeah, I can do it. But then to me, that is like, I was like, I'll do it. Like, right the day that I'm going to do it. And then, and why you gotta be so brave? Save your sass for another day.
Well, they don't get to know each other.
What if it's a boy and
And you guys
boy? Yeah. Once I find it,
I'm going home like when they give you I shower like every day. Traffic and then I get down the hallway. I don't even drive. I just live in like I just like get outside, do this, and then walk across the park. Like when I try to stop,
No, it's okay.
what if those out my hair going back there? I actually never noticed when my
Remember
hair
Carolyn?
is very supposed to look like that makes sense.
I'm going now. Okay, can you like wait? How do you let the onion? Do you think it's like that?
I didn't know there were
Like explain that.
Okay.
My grandma was in China studying.
Oh, that's purple.
She only went for blood.
Just saying, like, maybe that's not like you close part of the
Okay.
How dare she? I'm so shocked that people from my own.
I thought the freshman was. I thought the
Wait, do you conjugate? Wait, okay, so if you have Elaine and Carolyn, and you have another one that's Carolyn. Are you Steven's older sister? Yes. He has a crush on Ariel. What's that? He has a crush on her. Why did he know what she looks like?
Wait, give me a red.
I didn't know. Like you summarized it. First
We had a countdown at 2 It just looks like you're
I can't memorize it. She said that it's short.
because the girl mentioned we've heard their job.
I'm sorry, I messed up.
Also, your roadmap, you complicated that way too much.
That's really funny.
Just say it first, I'll be going on paper, okay, and then the equation. That is all you need to say.
Unless I actually don't have any points, and it's super long.
I knew it's so sweet.
Wait, can we use that basketball thing though? Like when we
Stop.
Like,
Wait,
explain why.
Oh my!
Like how many
Thanks for making my tweet!
It's like
so it's the one thing.
Also, you and Elaine needs to clarify that yours are like Christmas.
Wait, where is it? Look, there's a countdown to Christmas!
I'm not sure the actual
Possible topics that we should
Wait,
cover.
here, look!
Okay, like 5 minutes.
Miss Baymax? Are there possible topics?
I'm Baymax, your personal health care companion. Oh my God, Doctor Who companion.
Say that.
And don't know what to do, and like you're just like, I'm so unprepared. Go read up on gender.
I'm just gonna stick with like what we're gonna talk about.
I can show you guys a list if you want. Just like please random things.
But like he's so excellent. How brought up in the next
But isn't
election?
that over? Like,
No, because he'll probably brought up again. In January when the Republicans take over the House or the Senate or take over the Senate.
So I'm trying to establish it right now.
ISIS, there's gonna be something on ISIS, I'm sure. There's always stuff on like the leader. I want to get healthcare. Trump doing stuff on.
I did a stuff and I searched it up on Google, but I was
Probably
saying
stuff
stuff
on like
on
probably stuff on Russia.
Actually, I'm like 5.
I sure want that the Republicans in here are you know those
Actually, like no, Carson down there.
It's like
I thought people were saying that California is like
freshman?
No.
We're gonna be stuck.
Wait, so then if you were to so then if the country said
I want to be like,
wait, are you serious? Somebody say that.
Most of them are children.
no, we can go down right now.
Wait, I could have sworn this was the next.
6 rounds.
No, but he was like,
I guess give us some
wait, I could have sworn Mr. Floyd said that.
Partly info until they added it.
I literally.
No, Mr. Floyd was like,
Are you sure they're
My best friend is snowman.
100% dude. What were they talking about?
wait, Meredith. Wait, I thought that. Okay, so I thought Mr. Floyd said that like California's always been like really Democrat, and then now all of a sudden it's turning Republican.
Maybe it's Jerry was talking about was how certain areas have conservatives in them.
The girls were laughing at me so I literally like went up to them like, oh,
We were talking about we do have in our you know how like the state level we have our own state house.
and then they all called
Okay, so our state house representatives and our state senate.
I don't want to be like my pessimistic self and say
The way it works
I think
off is
they're
that
like
people are separated by ideology. Like
I know that.
live like
They're just 12%.
people who tend to be democratic